Ryan, we've been chatting and I forgot to say hello to you. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your wisdom on recruiting, both the fact that you're based in the UK, but you're also primarily focused on the US market. Obviously, for many of the people that might be watching it, it's Australian based, but your truth covers recruitment across many countries. So I'd love to hear from you on that. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You mentioned us that you have a golden doodle in the background in case we hear a yelp or any noise.
I do.
Just recently.
Yeah, he's 12 weeks old, so he's still quite unpredictable. But I've given him a big chew, so hopefully that keeps him busy for a little while.
No problem. Well, tell us about your background. I know from covering your profile that there was an exciting time in your past where you were playing football. We call it soccer here in Australia, but you were playing football from 16 to 19. Before you became that footballer, which is the dream of many kids, tell us about how you raised your character to be that type that can go into a match, get access to that ball, take charge of it. What was the formation of the young Ryan?
Honestly, the young Ryan, all he wanted to do every minute of every day was get a ball and play football. I'm going to call it football. Yes. I hope the viewers don't mind. We obviously have this a lot with the US because the US also call it soccer, but I can't do it. But yeah, the young Ryan just went to school, and then as soon as I come home, I would want to go outside and play in the street. We played a lot in the street where I lived, and yeah, I like school, but it was always just right. When am I next playing? Every single day, playing with my friends down the park. It was life outside of the formal education really, and that was the case until I was 16. Is the legal age you can leave school. Well, it was when I was at school anyway. So I was lucky enough to get picked as a 14-year-old to go and play for Crystal Palace, and I maintained that through my 14, 15, 16, and then at 16 I left school to go and play in their academy full time. So it was my job, my first job in the world as a 16-year-old.
Gotcha. When you were younger, like talking about 14 and even several years younger, when I was young, we could just roam free. And nowadays, many of the kids are taken from home to school back again. There's very little time away from their parents. I guess it's people's fear and concern. Were you a free range Ryan, or was there set times you had to come back by? For me, it was just before sunset. If I was back, I was good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there were definitely times because I think it was just different back then. Like I'm the same. Like we could go out. I think there were like a perimeter of how far you could go. That my parents felt was safe, and you just don't see it now. I agree with you there. Like here in England, you rarely see kids playing in the streets now. Just generally speaking. So yeah, there were curfews definitely that had to be in by, but
For your own kids, what would you do? Like drop off and pick up as well?
I don't know. I mean, my son's only 2, so those decisions feel quite far away.
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure he doesn't cause any damage to him or to anything around him right now, day to day.
It's an insurance risk now, nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do often think about it. I mean, where we live now, it does seem like it would be quite safe. And I don't know how my wife would feel, but I personally would be fine with him going out and playing. Occasionally, actually, a few doors down, there's some kids that play cricket out in the street occasionally. But apart from that, there's not much going on. But I'd like to think I would let him out, but I don't know. I have to speak to my wife, I guess. I won't make that decision on my own.
And is there traffic around your place? Like sometimes people here live in gated communities, so there's a feeling of an isolated, private space.
Yeah, it's not gated, but it is very similar. There's no houses opposite us. There's a bit of grass and parkland right opposite our house. So in theory, and we live on a cul-de-sac, so like there's no through traffic. So in theory, It's safe. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned before the Crystal Palace Football Club. There's an intense period of your life from that 16 to 19 where your athletic side of you shone bright. And I remember reading about you completed an Ironman course. And is that something where you've heard people say they've done an Ironman course, but really you knew they didn't finish the course? And so there's this partial credits people are claiming?
The Ironman thing, I mean, that was only last year. So I'm 34 now. So that was about
Wow.
a year ago. And yeah, so it's very different to I would say I was in peak physical condition as a 19-year-old, really,
Yeah.
like looking back.
Gone
Um,
downhill after that.
the Ironman was my way of trying to pick myself back up again and do something physically demanding. And I mean, it definitely ticked that box for anyone that's ever trained for one of those events, because personally, I'd never done a triathlon before.
Mhm.
So I had to learn how to swim properly. Like, swimming on holiday is very different to swimming for an endurance event like an Ironman. And yeah,
And
it,
they're not
it
mucking around either, all your competitors. They're in it for the kill, right?
yeah, yeah. A lot of them do like 2 or 3 a year, because it was the 70.3 event, which is the half Ironman distances. But for me, that was more than enough, and I've got the medal somewhere in here,
Well done.
and that's, yeah, that's me now. I think for at least until children are no longer toddlers.
Can I compare the athlete you once were to the athlete you are now? If I look at the 3 points you raised as being something you do whilst you're on the grounds, like be the hardest person working in that room, right? You want to compete with the best, be patient, pay attention to the details that no one else does, and live in the here and now. If I look at how you were as a 16 to 19 and now, have you changed from this cougar that can just, a leopard that can go across the field, do anything, to one that strategizes, saves your energy, your planning, and figuring things out rather than just raw, massive power?
I'm very appreciative that you describe my football player as a raw
It's a
natural
gift.
power.
It's a gift.
Yeah,
But
and
typically, I imagine
yeah,
your youth is just unlimited, do anything, not caring about the consequences. Whereas now, I suspect at 34, you're, you know, keeping your
yeah,
energy in reserve.
yeah. I mean, one thing that, you know, looking back at my time, I suffered with injuries even at Crystal Palace. Like, that was the turning point for the direction of the life that I ended up going and living. So I think now I'm a lot more aware of how to look after myself properly to try and avoid that. I mean, luckily for me, an Ironman event is quite low intensity. It's endurance, so it's not like sprinting, and it's not high or
Yeah.
explosive
Yes.
exercise. So that suits my hamstrings, put it that way,
Yes.
because
What about your
that was
knees?
my knee. I've never really had problems with my knees. Yeah, it was always my posterior chain, so like back and hamstrings, which is, what I had troubles throughout my whole 20s with playing football with my hamstrings.
Gotcha.
So
And then,
yeah.
okay, so you've now done this. What's the next in your preparations for future physical activities?
I don't know. I mean, the last few weeks and months, I haven't been as active, and I feel it. Like, I feel it mentally. Like, I don't like it, but I've got to just accept that right now there's a puppy in the house, and I'm adapting to that kind of new thing.
Paradigm. Yep.
And that, yeah, and that's okay. I don't know what the next thing is. I certainly won't be doing an Ironman anytime soon. The
You got the
training for
medal. You
it
can.
is, yeah, it's the day itself was great. It's the training. It takes months and months and months of 6 to 7 days a week, 2+ hours every day of training. That was what it looked like, and that's really hard to do with a young family and a business.
So you then, I presume, with your injuries at 19, you're making that shift in your mind. What am I going to do now? How did you scan the environment and say, what
Mm.
will I be good at? I know there's a certain attitude you have to be a football player. How did you decide on recruitment?
I don't think anyone ever makes, and I'm probably the millionth person to say this, but I don't think anyone makes the conscious decision, I want to get into recruitment.
You didn't dream at night time.
No, it wasn't my secondary dream after being a footballer as a 13-year-old. Yeah. But when things didn't end well at Palace, and then I had to make a decision. I was always quite good at school, so I just thought I'll go to university, and I went to the top sports uni in England, which is called Loughborough, and that way I could get an education and still play football to a pretty good standard. So that's what I did. I got the standard sport and exercise science degree, and I always knew in my heart I wasn't going to go and be a physio or be a sports scientist in any way. I think it was too raw still, accepting the fact that I wasn't going to make it necessarily as a football player, and I didn't want to be in that environment. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it was part, let's move away from sport as a
Yes.
career, and part, what traits do I have that might be quite good, and sales, recruitment is sales, basically. It's the same thing. And it just so happened I got a message from a recruitment firm that quite cleverly got the email addresses of everybody in the sports football team at Loughborough, and just sent them a message about, I think they called it like a graduate scheme, but it was a job in recruitment. And I went up to interview with them in Leeds, and that opened my eyes to the whole industry, because again, you just don't know about it. I didn't know it was an industry, let alone D3 Dynamics hadn't even come into it at this point.
Yes.
So yeah, that was how it came on my radar, and then I started looking at jobs in London, which is closer to where I'm from.
How do you start plotting what you can do? Because you'd obviously be aware of your skills, your talents, how you can talk. And you started to imagine, well, how do I map that to what's required in this industry? You said sales as a starting point. There's technology.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts as you try to figure out, do I have a path here?
Well, it was, I need a job, and
Let's get stuck into
unfortunately,
it.
yeah, I mean, you can call it fortunately, you can call it unfortunately. The barrier to entry into recruitment isn't that high,
Yes.
which I think is a different conversation about the standards then that are put in place into recruitment. That's a different story. But for me, it was like, well, I can go and do this. Apparently, the money's good if you're good at it, and that can happen quite quickly. So that was kind of my train of thought. I didn't know if I'd like it. I didn't know if I'd be good at it, but I mean, I ended up staying at that first firm that I joined after uni for 8 or 9 years, and that was when I discovered what Dynamics was, and
And
that
it
whole
keeps
industry
growing
as well.
exponentially. The whole Dynamics family just keeps growing. Tell me about,
Yeah.
you refer to yourself as like a serial headhunter. I'm imagining the game of getting candidates into the jobs that are available. How do you imagine the situation as? Is it you can't start your database until a job comes through, or you're scanning the market trying to find these potential targets ready to climb into those jobs? And the reason I'm asking you is because the people who are
Mm.
watching this, the D365 people, most of them are not aware what happens in the back end of recruitment companies.
Yeah. Yeah. It only dawned on me recently that a lot of what we do is not spoken about. So yeah, for to answer your question, it's a bit of both, really. For me now, I've built a network of people over a very long time in the space, so that's always going to be there for me. But you know, last 2 weeks ago, we filled a role in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, and that required absolute headhunting methodology to find someone that wanted to pick up and relocate there. So I'll always take a call with anyone that wants some help in the US that's in the same market, regardless of whether I've got something for them or not. And the worst they come away from that is maybe some advice on how to get what they want, or maybe it's an introduction to a company. So it's a bit of both, really, and it always will be, I think, between the two.
To keep the flow going both ways. Actually, in the US, there's a border region as well on the top right where Canadians can come and work across the border in the US. I think in Chicago, for example. Is that still going?
I'm not too sure. I mean, anywhere in the US, is I don't know about the Chicago specific bit that you mentioned, to be
Yes.
honest. 90% of what I do is US. And then we get, to be fair, we've had some contractors recently that are based in Canada residents or citizens, and they've got a contract with a US business.
Yeah.
Most of it's done remotely now though, as I'm sure
Yeah.
with your work as well. So there's little travel between the borders, but when there is, yes, you can travel to the US a lot more easily if you're Canadian.
Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that little light to the point. Okay, so with the
Yeah.
actual jobs that you're referring to, many people may be confused between you're based in the UK, whereas you're one of the leading voices in the US market. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah. So the firm I joined out of uni, basically there was a database, and it was a phone, and they were just basically, look, this is your market dynamics, go and learn about it, and off you go. And they were owned by a couple of American partners, so that naturally led to
Yes, the American
a
side.
relationship, yeah, and a network in the US. So I personally found that the US market was just a bit more welcoming than the UK market for our services. I don't know if you're aware, but for me, the UK is probably the recruitment capital of the world. There are
Yeah.
more recruitment
Wow.
companies in the UK than anywhere else. It's
And servicing externally, right? Not just within the UK.
yeah, more so now than there was sort of 12, 13 years ago. But in 2012, it was my dynamics was saturated by one of the big firms, and in my mind, it was like really hard to get your foot in the door because these other companies had can I swear? Oh, sorry.
I'll listen.
They'd upset a lot of people. They'd
Yes.
upset a lot of people, and it was really hard to just get them to take your call. But in the US, and for anyone that's been to the US that's not from the US, will know that they really like a good service. It's all about service, and that's what recruitment is. It's a service, and they were just a lot more receptive to it. So I just instantly gravitated that way and put up with the maybe slightly unsociable working hours in the meantime. But yeah, it was just a much more welcoming and a lot bigger, the market. So I just went in that direction, and I haven't really looked back.
Yeah, I also found the US market, if I talk to them, like I'm doing a little startup, and I found that
Mm,
if I explain any concept, they've already done it or they're very open to it. It's right on that edge and they're prepared to accept new ideas and have a
yeah.
go, even though you may not have a final product available. So, of the jobs that we see on the notice boards, the job boards, what percentage is hidden and what percentage are we actually seeing? Is it like a tip of the iceberg? In Australia, some people are saying it's 95% is advertised up front and only 5% is hidden. What's the ratio you're seeing in the US?
I think if we were going to split out permanent and contract, that would make a lot of sense because
Yeah.
permanent jobs, they're probably more. There's probably a higher percentage that are visible on the
Yes.
perm side, whereas contracts, they come and they go very quickly, and you don't have time to post jobs because the need is
Wow.
now. And I think I did a post about this recently, and it was more aimed at the contractor stuff because we rarely post contractor jobs. Going back to your question about like the network for the contracting stuff, we've built a pool of contractors that I can pick up the phone and call and have a chat with and have a relationship with, and they're the people that as soon as someone says, oh look, we need a D365 business analyst in finance, I'm already thinking, right, I know 3 or 4 people I can call straight away for this. So it makes no sense to post the job because I'm just going to call them up and it all happens offline.
Incredible, right? If you're a
Yeah.
person who lives off the job boards and you're thinking this is all that's there, you're actually missing out on a huge percentage.
Yeah. I'd say as any contractor that's been doing this a while, having good relationships with agencies on the recruitment side is usually a really good idea for that exact reason. But the perm jobs, I'd say not all of them are posted again. because we don't post all of them that we have, but it's probably more likely that they're going to be online at some point, especially with like the customers, so the end users hiring directly. They'll probably have a posting out there on the World Wide Web somewhere.
What's the movement from permanent to contractor or vice versa? Since COVID, are we shifting in either direction?
This is just my personal analysis, let's say, or theory, but I just see that there's a movement towards freelancing, generally speaking, now. As I'm not even just talking about D365. I just think generally, time has become a lot more important to people, in my view, and being able to do the things that are important to people is more important than it used to be. I'd say 10 years ago, if that makes sense.
Sounds important.
Yeah, I think COVID slowed everything down.
Yes.
I mean, for me, I wasn't an employee anymore. I'd been made a partner at this other company, but my world slowed down to the point where I was like, well, why don't I do this for myself? I can do this without the help of XYZ. So I'd always had that itch. And for me, that was the turning point. COVID slowed life down, worked from home, was then able to go, actually, I want to set up my own business and do this myself. And basically, Bon Patrick is the recruitment version of being a freelancer. It's just sort of me and a back office team, but it's essentially me now. So
you've got a great name, Ryan, but Bon Patrick's even nicer, man. If I was you, I would change my name to Bon Patrick.
My middle name's Patrick, so I'm nearly there.
You might even become a movie star in the future with that name. But anyway, continue. You've created your own business based on a model based on COVID slowdown.
Yeah. So, but to answer your first question, I've seen a lot more people in the D365 space go in a similar pathway where it's like, well, actually, I can do this myself, and I can be a freelancer. There's a lot more independent contractors that are newer in the US anyway that I've seen in the last 3-4 years that made a similar decision for probably similar reasons. So yeah, I just think that that's the way the market's going, which I think is a good thing for everybody, because you get really, really talented people that become independent contractors that can do just as good a job as some of the partners out there. And some of the partners do need a good person on the other side to keep them in line, let's say.
I mean, even as an independent arbiter, like a referee almost, you can get a highly skilled freelancer in to act as a cross balance or check on the progress of a particular project.
Yeah.
So moving from, I guess, the history that you've explored from your entry as an athlete and then shifting across to recruitment, I'd love to talk about employers and the things that you're informing them about the market. So if I'm an employer, I come to you, I want all these skills in one role. It's too much. Maybe they are misunderstanding the Dynamics family. Tell me about the top 3 things that you're helping employers to understand and therefore define the best talent.
Yeah, so I'll take an assumption that we're talking about end customers hiring for D365 talent,
yes,
as opposed to the partners, right?
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, so the 3 things that we're advising, I mean, yes, the first one is define the skill set realistically, because you will see job descriptions out there and they'll say, we want a finance expert who can code in X++ and can do all the design work, and project manage as well, and train, right? And, there might be 1 or 2 people that genuinely have that ability to do it all, but 1, they're probably contractors, so they're not going to want to take a permanent job if this is a perm job, and 2, they're probably really busy and they probably don't have time to just put down everything they want that they have now to work, with you. So
I would also challenge them that I was going to say, sorry, I was challenge them if you've got a person who's an awesome project manager and they have functional skills, why would you want them either cutting code or training? On any level, you would want them to do what they do best. And I could just know that the time shifting, the cost to move from one task to the other, you're just going to get someone spinning their wheels. And if and when they leave, where's your
Yeah.
backup person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So the other one would be, I mean, it's all just about helping them understand themselves, what they're looking for, and how realistic it is. You know, again,
So rates, are you talking about rates, realism?
well, I think there's three things. There's three things that we normally talk about: it's skill set, location, and price. Right? They're the three, legs to the stool, if you like.
Yes.
Which are most important about what the need is. And obviously location is a big one. Like if you can open up your position that it's more remote, still in the US or Canada, but it's remote and they can work from anywhere, and then maybe travel once a month, once a quarter, however often that's realistic. That is going to give you the best chance of hiring the best person for the job. Just period. Like that's the one piece that opens up any talent pool, more than money and usually more than skill set as well. So
Wow.
that's a big one really, because again we're fighting against the old norms and the old attitudes of be in the office because that's what you do, right? And some companies have completely embraced this new way of working and say, actually, you don't need to be here. You don't need to be. But when we do need you here, can you just make sure you're here? And that's the best way to do it is to have that approach. But
Is there a
some
price?
come
Sorry, I was going to say,
sorry.
is there a price that someone would give up to be remote? So if you offer the same job in Ohio, or you could get someone remote, they said, I'll give up 20K or 50K or some amount if you let me work remotely. Is there a figure that you know of?
There isn't a specific figure. I would say again, people are people. They're all different. They all have different needs and different drivers, and their situation is different. So it is a case by case. But again, we're just sort of generally speaking, people want to work from home more now.
Mm.
They want to be able to pick up their school and pick up their kids from school in the morning and have that flexibility during the day to do what they need to do. So yeah, typically speaking, there's no number, but people value it,
Yes,
and more so, it doesn't require them to pick up their life and move to the other side of the country. So that's the other
that's
important
the other
bit,
thing.
right?
What would an employer, what could they offer if they said, I wanted them in the office? What could they offer in terms of other amenities or other facilities that make someone want to come in? For example, I know of a mining company in Australia where
Yeah,
they literally have, and I'm not kidding, I went to the office, they had these stainless steel spouts, and you could, on your phone app, pick a type of coffee that you want, so a latte with oat milk in a small size, and then you walk up to the stainless steel app, put your cup underneath, press the go button, and it would come out. The tap next to it had bubbly water. You can have Coke or whatever else. And there were
yeah,
so many things that were in the fridges that you could get. And then they had 3 kitchens that you could stroll through, order your meal. This time you pay for it. But the fact that they made all of this within the office, there's
yeah,
even a gym there, that people came early in the morning and they left late at night because they just felt taken care of. How's that
yeah.
for an experience?
Well, yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, gyms is a big one as well. I think that's normally a really good idea. But yeah, some companies just, I mean, they might not do that, but they just pay more.
Pay more.
There's a
Yep.
premium assuming that there's no local people that fit the role, and relocation has to be
Pathway.
the
Yeah.
option. But yeah, I mean that office sounds cool. Where's that?
So, but the funny thing is that the people who stay there late know they have families to go home to, but it's a gym and look at the food and look at the service that I get. It'll be interesting to do a weigh-in before and a weigh-in afterwards to see how many kilos they put on from the lifestyle. Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about the employer, the benefits that they can give, and obviously money is one of the top ones. Is there anything else that you're seeing employers trying to pull employees or contractors across? Is it certification costs paid for, the types of teams they're trying to assemble?
Yeah. Well, the other thing that we work with customers a lot on is answering the the most important question in my mind is, well, let's say, I don't know, we were gonna try and hire for McDonald's, right? Why should someone want to work at McDonald's? I know maybe that's not the best example, but just roll with it. Like, well, the question is like, why your business? Why would a D365 person want to come and work at your company? You know, and that's what we help work with businesses for. It's like, well, they're going to have options, right? Like any D365 professional that's good at what they do, they only need to flick a button on LinkedIn to say I'm open to work, and they're going to get plenty of people that will come and speak to them about, you know, what they're looking for. So it's creating what we call an employer value proposition. And we did actually do some work on this the year before last on what's important to D365 professionals across, and I'll be happy to share a copy of the findings.
Yes,
But
please.
it was really quite fascinating because it doesn't really change. It's like, well, I say this, the most important thing is not money to people anymore. Not
Can we
really.
guess now? I know you know the answer, but okay, how about I guess?
Yeah, go
Is
on.
it, tell me the team that I'm working with, because I want to know that I'm not the only person in the shotgun to try and bring home a 747, right, to land it.
Yeah,
Okay, that's one I'm thinking of.
team.
Secondly, how realistic is the project sponsor? So the last thing you need is someone to say, I reckon you could roll out all the modules for 50 legal entities in 6 months, and I've got budget for it. Go. You go, hang on a minute. You haven't even done a requirements gathering exercise. It's
Yeah.
just, okay, so it's the sponsor, the team, and I'd like to know what are some of the things they're trying to implement. So if they are doing the full supply chain, that's more exciting than someone just doing finance. If they're doing some of the modules that maybe I've not experienced, I would like to learn those modules. So how close am I to at least one out of the
You're
three?
pretty close, actually. I'd say that we kind of maybe use different terminology, but one of the most important things for someone, and this is just permanent employment
Okay.
again. So this is different to contracting, which I think is an important distinction to make because it's a very different gig, isn't it, that you're joining permanently versus just to deliver a
Yeah.
project. But one of the most important, well, I'd say the two most important things were, what's the mission of the business, and
Mm.
what's my specific role towards getting us to that mission and that purpose. I don't know if you can hear the puppy, but he's woken up,
No,
so
it's all fine.
I'm going
Yeah.
to quickly grab him. I think we've got really good
Soundproofing.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Baby.
yeah. This is
Very
Barney.
cute. Very handsome, Barney.
Very,
Pleased to
yeah.
meet you.
See, yeah.
He doesn't look like a troublemaker either.
See,
He
that's
just
it.
looks,
That's how he draws you in. So yeah, it's the overall mission of the business that you're joining. So like
yes.
again, you know, we've got a customer that makes educational toys and games for children, right? And
Yes.
that to me, and that's just
Yes.
my personal thing, but that would be you know, the one of the highest kind of purposes you could join a business for. Yeah,
Yep.
because it comes down to your values, right, and what's important to you as a person. And we're all different, of course. And then, but more important than the mission of the business is what's my role within that? How am I
Oh,
going to help contribute to that, you know, wider mission? And you got to walk someone through that in an interview to really kind of demonstrate like you're important to this. You know,
sounds
people
like you
want
have
to
to do
feel
that.
like they matter. The work that they're doing is important.
Yeah, their voice matters as well as what they're doing. Tell me then, you're really doing this ahead of time with the employer, because you haven't even got to the potential employee yet. The employer might not have framed it in that way.
No, again, so yeah, we offer one of the services that we offer as a product, and we do all of this before we even start like looking for candidates. You know, it's really important, and we create all these like landing pages that we have video content where I'm interviewing the hiring managers and stuff, and that's the content that we then share with prospective candidates to say, look, this is the mission of the business. This is how you're going to impact it, and this is why we should talk. And I mean, for the right person, that's going to get them really excited about speaking to me as the recruiter, and that's kind of where the magic happens, because people can like self qualify or self disqualify based on a lot of information. Yeah.
In fact, you're taking the game past salary. So, when we think of our needs, going from paying the bills off to achieving mastery at something, you keep pushing it further up to that pointy tip at the top, which is, what is my purpose in life? Is there meaning beyond just another project rollout?
Yeah. Yeah, and the one of the other really important things is progression as well. Like not just the mission, but then also like how is my personal progression going to look at this business? Can I learn? Can I develop as a person and as a professional in this space? And the people the companies that do that piece really well usually attract the best talent. Because that's what the best talent wants is to develop.
Just talking to you about this, my heartbeat went up, because I could imagine what it feels like being in an interview and you're telling me this story, that this company is doing this. They want to change the face of how we treat educational material, and kids 5 years from now, blah, blah, blah. And this is how you contribute to getting that underlying foundation, shift that product and to get into the hands of 1 million kids worldwide. Just the way it reframes what you're doing.
Yeah.
A couple of years from now, you finish your project and look what's likely to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for some companies, it's a lot more difficult to answer that question. Well, why McDonald's? It's like it is more difficult, and you have to really dig a bit deeper. But our job is to find that reason, and then to find people that resonate with that reason.
Yes. So that's the amazing thing what you're doing with the employer. I presume, I don't know, 8 out of 10 employees come on the journey. The other 20% filter themselves out and they say, no, we're offering a job. We're not letting them become the CEO of this company. Is there a
not for
everybody?
Rate? Yeah, it's not for everybody. And there's a financial investment up front for us to do all of this work ahead of speaking to candidates, and it's okay that that's not on, that's not very important to people. But you'll know the companies that want to do things properly and invest properly where they need to invest, they're the ones you want to work with anyway. So I think it was a bit of a journey for me personally to be okay with people saying no and just being like, okay, that's cool, it's not for you. I'll find the next one that is for them, and we're all good.
In a way, there's a feedback loop from what you're doing back into the existing employees, that if they reframe the mission of the business and reposition themselves in people's eyes inside the company already, that's such a big bonus, rather than just saying, oh, we'll tell this to the new employees, right? I could see the benefit for them. Okay, so if we then step across to the employees or the potential employees, and maybe even deal with contractors, you get 1,000 through every day. How do you start the process of culling resumes? And the reason I'm asking is that people have gone so used to sending out shotgun blasts of resumes. They're just hoping that if I press more buttons, they'll get in front of people like yourself. And just like playing the lottery, they just want to win 1 out of the 10. What's your thoughts on that process?
Yeah, I completely understand why candidates and people looking for jobs would think that way, especially when they are looking for a job and it's urgent. They might be out of work, or they might have just lost their job, or they might think that they're going to lose their job. I can understand why the shotgun approach feels like it's getting you closer to finding a job.
Feels like you're doing work, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. It feels like progress. I think I view it slightly differently, because I am on the receiving end of a lot of that behavior. We do from time to time post jobs on LinkedIn as an example, and again, I did a post about this recently. It's like it's too easy to apply now.
Oh yeah, the easy apply.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
saw
just
that.
too. Yeah, I genuinely believe that you, yes, yes, it should be somewhat easy to apply so that people, are able to do it quickly. But the way that LinkedIn have it set up, you can even put filtering questions that applicants must answer. And I always do it to slow them down and hopefully catch, people that
Just
aren't
click, click,
suitable,
click, click.
because it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a waste of everybody's time. And you'll get, I think we did a project manager one the other day, and we had like 200 applicants for it. And when you go through and look at the questions that you try to use to filter out a lot of the people, unfortunately, applicants are dishonest. Like, genuinely just put like, yes, I have 4 years of D365 experience, and they don't, which creates extra admin. And
Yes.
it then I think my analogy was, it makes the haystack so much bigger that it's even more difficult to find those needles than it was in the first place. So it becomes a bit of a frustrating task to then go through 200 applicants to find maybe one or two. And we do it rarely, but there are HR teams that do this every day for all sorts of roles, and it overwhelms them. Like, literally, it will overwhelm them, because the task of going through those, and there are ways that you can automate some of that, but then you run the risk of automating to the detriment of the good candidates, because they might not
Sure.
have one of the buzzwords, or they might have spelt D365 slightly differently, because there's so many ways of putting it on your
FinOps
resume.
or
And F&O,
Dynamics. Yeah.
finance and supply chain management, FNSCM, like, it was a lot easier when it was AX, wasn't it?
No, there used to be
um,
Exapta, and then there was AX 2012, and yeah.
yeah.
But so what could someone do that is actual work going in an actual direction rather than just spamming recruitment companies? Or for example, they even message people like myself just saying, hey, do you have a job? What could
Yeah,
they do better than that that would actually give them some legitimate outcomes?
I would say to reach out to people, people associated. Right, so I'm gonna put this dog back because he's biting me now. Again, there's agencies like us that you can reach out to, and reach out to the people, and find a reason to connect with them that's more than, can you help me? It could be a post that someone's written, and you could say, look, hey, look, this resonated with me for these reasons. Can we set up a call? Just put a bit more thought into it, because I get messages from people, and they're just asking for stuff, and it's like, well, I don't even know who you are.
Yeah,
Why would I take time out of my day because you need help? Like, it's kind of like, give
yeah,
me a reason to help you. So I would say that, like, with recruiters, but you can reach out directly to hiring managers, the ERP manager at a company, or maybe the HR or head recruiter, an end user, and just send them a message and say, hey, like, this is why I'm interested in your business. Is it worth exploring? Reach out to people, not to, you know, job boards that might not get read by a human being.
right.
That's always a good idea. And there are things you can do to train yourself on identifying who might be the best person, but typically D365 related, anyone that's got D365 at a company, you could just reach out to them and say, look, hey, I saw this position. Can you help? Like, this is why I'm interested in it. This is why I might be a good fit. Like, it's in my hometown or whatever it is. Who can I speak to help me with this? And you'd be surprised at people's willingness to actually go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can help you.
What's the preparation that a potential employee needs to have in their mind before they even send that message? So I'm thinking, if someone sent me a message, I would say, what makes you better than these other candidates that will come through the front door? Shouldn't they have some sort of explanation as to why they're better? Like, I'm currently certifying for this. I'll be finished by next month, and I'll be a fully qualified functional consultant. Or you're in healthcare. I've just finished with a client in healthcare, and I'm able to easily pick up,
Mm,
the terminology, and I've worked with your existing customers. So I'm just trying to figure out what's the bit that actually resonates beyond pressing the doorbell and hoping the
Yeah,
door opens.
yeah. We cross borders between art and science here, and if there was
Mhm.
one answer that I could give that would
Mhm.
answer, that would answer the question entirely, my life would be a lot easier as well.
Yeah.
But you know, I
How about
think,
posts? You know how you do posts, for
yeah.
example? So did I cut you off there in the middle of
No, no, go
a
on.
thought?
You're right.
No. I was looking at your posts, and there is something to be said when you are a thought leader, just putting out your concepts to the world and creating that public profile. Does it help the candidate? They come through the door, they've got the resume, they've got experience. Does it help if they have a public profile, or you don't even care?
It certainly helps, but I completely understand that people don't have time to be posting on LinkedIn. That's just
Yep.
not realistic. It doesn't help pay their bills. It doesn't it's not enjoyable for some people. People are scared about what to post and how to say things, and you run into a whole nother set of problems and fears about posting on LinkedIn. But for those that do it and just do it consistently, yeah, of course it helps.
Or a blog,
You're
maybe a
putting,
blog article, blog,
yeah,
website. And
yeah, it certainly helps. But I think just approaching it like a human being, because obviously we're going into this future with AI at the forefront of everything that we're doing. And it won't be long before we're going to have to start convincing people that it's actually people that they're dealing with, and that it's not a bot that's sending a message and you're actually a genuine person. And I think just leading with empathy, like leading as a human being, like this is why I'm reaching out to you. What do you think? Is the general gist of a message. What do you think? Is this worth exploring or not?
do you know
And
what I'm?
yeah, go on.
I was
I can,
thinking about bots. And do you know how in the US, I think with the police, if you ask them, "Are you a police officer?" they have to respond affirmative because they can't
oh
lie,
right,
right?
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you think there'll be a law soon where you go, "Are you a bot?" And as part of the ethics for AI, maybe they'll force all bots to have to respond, "Yes, I'm a bot," or in their communication. Like I know if you alter any imagery on YouTube, you are now
Yeah.
forced to sign that this is a real person or this is an altered version of a person when you upload a video. So
Mm.
you have to actually certify whether or not this contains false images of real people, right? So imagine in the future, if you do get the messages, as you said, they first have to say, "Hi, I'm a bot." And then it says whatever it has to.
Well, I would vote for that.
Yeah.
I think every human would vote for that being a universal law or rule.
I heard the
Yeah.
bots voted against it, but
No. Yeah. And who knows who's in charge here anymore? I don't know.
yes. Ryan, how do you color your resumes? You get 1,000 in, how do you quickly cut them down to the top three so that if I'm, advising future candidates, this is what you need to do to get highest in that queue? What would be the attributes?
People want to be able to quickly, and by quickly, I think the research shows like 7 to 10 seconds is the average length that people will read a resume. So for me, when I'm looking at a resume, it is just looking for the keywords and the buzzwords of whatever skill set it is that you're actually looking for. So I would just say make it abundantly clear, which lane it is that you are a specialist in, whether that's supply chain, manufacturing, advanced warehousing, you're a developer, solution, whatever it is. Just make it very clear early on near the top, this is what I do. So
Okay,
that would be
don't be
my,
general.
for the most part, I would say yes, that's probably what I would look for. But then again, there are companies out there that believe that they need a general. you know, a generalist in
Yeah.
in a little bit of everything. And for maybe support roles, that's okay, you know, where the implementation is done, and you know, you just kind of need someone to help keep the lights on, and you know, escalate things that they can't handle and tackle things that they can. But you know, certainly in contracting, you know, pick a lane and be really good at it is my general advice.
How many pages should the resume be?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Generally.
There's this, yeah. So for someone that's been doing this, and you know, I work with loads of people that have been doing this for like 20, 30 years, you know, asking them to cut down a resume into, you know, 2 or 3 pages is usually a good idea. But like, there are people that say, well, I've got to get it down to one. And I mean, for me, if that first 7 seconds is good, you know, when I'm scanning the first page of a resume, I will scan and look at 2 and 3 as well. So I think 2 and 3 is sort of probably a rough guide of like, don't make it more than that because it probably won't get read properly. Yeah. But it's page 1 that you need to just make sure it's very clear, you know, with the highlights of what you do, your skill set, and even where you are, you know, put your location, because that's sometimes really important as well. But
what about technical skill versus soft skills? Many people, like you said, with years of experience may know things about servers, Azure, Power Apps. Do they go hell for leather on identifying those to the detriment of their soft skills? Because great people manager, the way in which you organize your team, which one is getting greater emphasis nowadays?
again, depends on the role. Like, it depends on the role. That for some roles it is very important. Like, say, a leadership role. Like, well, what kind of leader are you? You know, that bringing that out of your resume can be a really good differentiator. You know, but there are other roles that are purely technical, and actually they're not that important. You know, yes, it's great if you've got them, but that isn't going to be the criteria to get you which is, you know, basically the point of a resume, isn't it? Is, you know, let's get on a call and meet, you know, in person, or you know, on a Teams call, for example. So yeah, I'm sitting on the fence there. I'm very aware that I've just sat on the fence for that question, Chris. But
It's all right.
it,
I'll move on
it
to the next
kind of
one.
it depends kind of answer, really. That's
Sure.
the honest truth.
I could have been more specific in it. Next time I will. But let me ask, if my salary requirements are up here, the job is down here, I have a sneaking suspicion that if you go through the interview without blocking it because of the salary gap, get through it and see if they love you. And then there might be some negotiation. Whereas if you straight up front say, look, the price is too low, I'm out, you've actually lost that opportunity. Thoughts?
So are you asking me if
I said,
at
say,
the beginning,
100,
yeah,
mine's
yeah,
100, they're only offering 80. Should
yeah.
I just pike out at that time and saying I'm out of the market? I'm not being covered by their 80? Or should I just go for the interview anyway, because they may come up to 90 and I might fall in love with the job and find some middle ground?
Yeah, I mean, crazier things than what you've just described have happened from all the years I've been doing this. So, you know, again, if it goes back to the business and their mission and your purpose within that, then people will be flexible, because it's not just about that. But there are other people that are like, no, I'm earning 100. I'm not going to earn less than that. I probably want 110 or 120 to make a move. So I don't want to waste anybody's time here. So, you know, it just depends. Again, I'm going to go with another depends answer, but yeah, like what's important to that person is the most important thing to them. So it's like, well, go for the interview, but maybe make it clear that this is your salary requirements. And if you don't want to waste your time, just say, look, this is where we're at. What do you think? Or is this worth exploring or not? Yeah.
Makes sense. Ryan, you've given us great advice. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your family time, and giving direction to people. It's often really difficult when people put in their job applications, just waiting there and wondering what's happening behind the scenes. Thank you very much for sharing it with us.
No problem. It's been great.
Have a wonderful day, Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care then. Catch up.
Bye-bye.
Mobiz is a community-run organization. We believe in liberating people from the shackles of monotony, inspiring them to dream bigger and reach higher. We empower them to focus on the things that matter, growing their skills, solving new problems, and helping others on a global scale.
We eliminate manual work that stands between people and their future, preventing them from learning new technologies, unleashing their talents, and leaving a legacy that has a lasting impact.
Freedom doesn't wait. Join us at mobiz.com.